Hey guys, John here. I kind of wanted to talk about something that I've personally experienced, and maybe you have as well. When we open up our synthesizer of choice, we kind of end up doing the same things, which result in making the same patches every single time, right? So, for example, let's say you open up a new preset, something like this, in a knit preset, and you're like, okay, let me add some unison. Okay, that's kind of cool. Maybe let's get some more voices. Let's do some filtering. Okay, add some resonance, maybe some envelope modulation. There's your core sound, and then you're like, okay, I need some effects here, maybe EQ or compress, or maybe even we just want to add some delay. Maybe some reverb, I don't know, something like that, maybe some reverb. Okay, that's a little bit muddy, so maybe we drag this down, add an EQ here. Maybe a high shelf, something kind of like that. Brighten it up just a bit here. And we're like, okay, it's okay. It's not like it's horrible, but we end up making the same things over and over. So we're like, okay, this is cool. I don't really like it too much. So we go to initialize, we make a new patch, and then we start all over again. We have our saw wave, we give unison, do the same thing with a cutoff. And before you know it, we're kind of just making the same thing over and over and over again. So how do we get out of this repetitive preset patching, right? Because at some point you really want to make something new and unique and just fun, right? So I think the main thing that we should start off with is kind of look at the first thing that we're doing once we have an init patch. So we open this guy up, we have a saw wave. Okay, that's interesting, but maybe we can change the saw wave to something else, right? Maybe if your synthesizer allows you to draw your waveform or change the harmonics or something like that, it might inspire you to make something different. Because a lot of the times in making patches, at least for me, I don't specifically start with a patch and say, I'm going to make this. Because 9 times out of 10, it can end up like that, but a lot of the times it doesn't and ends up something different. So I'll start with something and then kind of just add something different, and then that will inspire me to make something different off that, and then just the inspiration is basically one step ahead of the next one. So if we have a saw wave, something kind of like this, maybe we can go to this free mode here. Maybe make something like this. So we're starting off with a different waveform. It's kind of strange. May bring us some cutoff and maybe choose a different filter. Sometimes we get stuck on the same filter every single time. So for this guy, maybe we can do like this low pass 12, give it some resonance. Slow down the decay a little bit here. So we have this kind of tonality, and then from here, we can kind of just mess around with other things. What does it sound if we do some FM here? So at that spot, it sounds kind of cool. Kind of sounds almost liquidy, maybe lasery, something kind of like that. Okay, what if we had a little bit of vibrato, something kind of like that? And maybe this decay is a little bit too slow, so we can maybe speed that up just a little bit. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So now here we're like, okay, we have a weird sound. What happens if we try to mangle this waveform a little bit more? So maybe we can hit this plus here, add the shaper, and I personally like putting the shaper after the filter. And maybe we can have an LFO kind of move in that, right? So we can drag this LFO, drag and drop here, give it a little bit of depth like that. And that's pretty fast here, so we can probably take it off this here, maybe on Hertz. And then for this host or this syncing, we can go to free, so it's kind of just doing its own thing. And maybe that depth is a little bit too much. We can go to the mod matrix and maybe bring this down just a little bit, maybe like 10. So it's kind of interesting, maybe add some spread here. And basically the whole concept here is whatever you start with, the first thing that you kind of go with, don't do that, do something entirely different and kind of just follow a different timeline. Because if you start with the same saw wave, start with the same unison, same filter cutoff, your patches aren't really going to be that much different. So we have this guy here. And then maybe from here, we can add another oscillator. Let's say maybe it's instead of a saw, let's go to a square, drop this down maybe an octave and kind of change the pulse width. Right, so that's kind of starting to sound a little bit mean. We have that low beefy square at the bottom, or technically pulse. And then we have this weird oscillator here that kind of gives us that strangeness, whatever that means. So we can play off on this a little bit more. We have two of these oscillators. Now we could send these to the effects. So let's go here, add an EQ. It's kind of a cool little resonance peak we got there. And maybe on this guy as well, what we can do is we can go to the... Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's increase some V strength here. That might be kind of interesting. And then go to this V speed and kind of just move this around. So with this weird waveform, it's just continuously moving and being its own thing. Okay, we have something like that. We don't even have effects yet at this point, so maybe we can put some compression on this bad boy. Kind of interesting. So maybe next from this here, we can see what a chorus sounds like. Maybe we'll leave it, maybe we won't. I always like this one here, especially in Avenger, this nice chorus too. And then we can start just hammering on effects that might be kind of cool. So this vintage phaser is interesting as well. There's one here. It's, where are we? I think it's dark baseline widener. Do weird stuff like that. And then maybe from here we can add a delay. And who knows, this might be kind of an interesting sound. We can both turn the ARP on for both of these guys. Maybe slow down our tempo a little bit here. Maybe we can bring this window down and let's say 110, something like that. See how that changes things here. That might be kind of interesting. And then from here, what I kind of like doing in Avenger as well is kind of going to the drums and seeing what things would sound like. So if we went to, for example, say synthwave 4, let's see, this cyber kit's always kind of interesting. And especially in Avenger as well, I do like going to the ARP and then changing this mode to alternate 2. I think this one's kind of cool. So yeah, this is kind of just who knows where this patch was going. This, like, I didn't intend to make something like this, but the cool part about just doing everything different that you normally do, you're going to end up with some really cool patches. And also something to keep in mind is if you're in your synth, whichever one that is, and you have your kind of go-to effects that you always know that sounds kind of cool, but maybe there's some other ones in there that you kind of know what they do. Maybe you don't really use it too often. Try those out a little bit more, because a lot of the times you can really make something cool out of that. So for example, one that I really like, I didn't use too much, but I've been really starting to use it more, is this multi-band distortion, because this one can be really cool. I could put this after, or the delay after that. So now if we have something like this here, so yeah, that can be a lot of fun as well. So yeah, this one actually turned out pretty cool. But yeah, long story short, just whatever you're doing, do something entirely different. Stop following the same exact things, because if you change your recipe, change what you do, you're going to ultimately change the patch, and you're going to kind of get out of that making the same patch every single time. So maybe start with a waveform, start with some different effects, maybe a different filter, just do everything different, and you're going to come up with obviously different results. It sounds simple on the surface. Like if you hear that, you're like, okay, I kind of get that. But once you put it into practice, you're like, okay, now I understand this a little bit more, and you're going to be making some really weird patches that you're like, that's kind of cool. You're going to find some workflow tips that you can maybe take from and apply to something later on in your sound design journey. So yeah, I thought I'd share this little tip of advice. Obviously, it's helped me quite a lot on making weird patches like this. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something, and we'll see you in the next video.